What's going on YouTube? OCD for EDC here, and I'm back with another knife strife. So, for those that don't know, this is taking two knives from two different manufacturers that I kind of feel like have the same intended purpose. And today, what we've got. Oop. Yeah, my dramatic intro went all to shit right there. Anyway, so we're going to square these two guys off with one another and check them out and see what they have to offer. So, first up, we'll set this guy off to the side. First up is a knife that I'm sure everyone is familiar with. This is the Benchmade Freek, commonly referred to as the Super Freek. And this is just the stock standard Freek. I don't remember the exact model number on this, but this is the one that is in M4 blade steel, black coated blade. You got layered G10 scales. I actually have put a bug out clip on here just because, I like the smaller clip. And, of course, access lock. And it has the stock red liners, red back spacers. So, barring the clip, this is exactly how you would get this knife from Benchmade. We're pairing this off with, this happens to be the new Sprint Run Spyderco Shaymin. This is Micarta scales. This happens to be CPM Cruwear. And this is a Sprint Run version of an existing knife. I'm sure everyone is also familiar with the Spyderco Shaymin. This version here is brand new, but they do have some other Sprint Run versions out there. They actually make a Spyderco Shaymin in M4. I don't know if it's still available, I'm pretty sure it's sold out everywhere, but I don't know if they'll bring it back or not. But it did have natural G10 or like the jade color G10 scales with M4 blade steel. So that's the two knives here. So let's get into it a little bit and we'll see why I think that these two knives pair off well with one another and basically intended for the same purpose. So as you can see here, overall length is very, very similar. What you're looking at here is on the Shaman, we have an overall length of 8 3/8 inches. And on the Super Freek, we have an overall length of 8.5 inches. So there's about an 1/8 inch difference on these two guys. Handle length on the Freek is 4 7/8. On the Shaman, it is 4 11/16. So a slight difference there. Blade length on the Freek, we have 3 5/8, and on the Shaman we have 3 11/16. And thickness. This is one measurement where things are off just a little bit here. So on the Freek here, we have a handle thickness of just over 6/10 of an inch. So just shy of 5/8 of an inch. It is a little bit contoured. I don't know if I'll really be able to show this very well. Let me close this up so you can kind of see that this is kind of rounded here and contoured. It makes for a really comfortable knife. And on the Shaman, in thickness, just a little over a 1/2 inch. So we are a little thinner in handle thickness. Blade stock thickness on the Shaman, you're looking at 142 thousandths or 3.6 millimeters. And on the Freek is 112 thousandths or 2.9 millimeters. So quite a bit thinner blade steel on the Super Freek here. And then other notable measurements here. Effective grip area. Now, when I did the grip area on the Shaman, I took into account the forward finger choil because for me, that's really the kind of natural or the way that I like to grip this knife. I don't really like to use it like this. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, that's the way it's comfortable for me. So taking all that into consideration, basically from here to the back of the handle, the grip area on the Shaymin is 4 3/4, where on the Super Freek, you have a much smaller grip area. It's actually an inch smaller. You're looking at 3 3/4 inches from this point to right here. Now, with that being said, my hand doesn't feel too cramped on the Freek, but I think that the girth of the handle, being a little thicker through the midsection there, helps quite a bit to kind of fill the hand. This thing really fills the hand quite well. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about there. Anyway, so yeah, grip on both of these knives, I feel like is really well done. It's really comfortable. On the Freek, I guess you can choke up, but you're really flirting with the edge of the blade there. You do have this kind of nice thumb ramp area here with some jimping on it, where on the Shaman there's no thumb ramp, but there is good jimping. And then of course you have this really nice forward choil here. So what that means for cutting edge is on the Shaman, we only have an actual cutting edge of 3.17 inches. So just a little bit over a 3-inch cutting edge. So that's a pretty large knife for only 3 inches of cutting edge. Whereas on the Super Freek, you've got just over 3.5 inches of actual cutting edge here. Now I'm measuring that in a straight line, so I'm not taking into account the belly. But in a straight line, you got 3.55 inches of actual cutting edge on the Freek. And the other thing that we'll get into account here is the weight of these two guys. So the Super Freek comes in at 4.265 ounces. So not too bad for kind of a large, heavy duty knife, if you will. And on the Shaman, a little more substantial, 4.866 ounces. So the Shaman, certainly a little bit heavier, but both are, totally reasonable for an EDC knife. This dimension here is not so different. You can see the footprint of the knife, or the amount of pocket space that they would take up, is very, very similar. And the overall shape is actually really close. So yeah, comparing these two knives in their closed position, although they do look quite different, you can see here when I stack them on top of each other, they're actually very, very close in overall footprint that they're going to take up in your pocket space. So one other noticeable measurement, apparently my left hand isn't working today, behind the edge thickness. So remember, we've got much thinner blade stock here on the Benchmade Freek. We got 112 thousandths up here, and we've got 142 thousandths over here. So another 30 thousandths in the blade stock thickness, which is, really evident. I mean, it's really noticeable. However, blade stock thickness doesn't, you can see both are a flat grind blade. There is a small flat up here, so it's not a full flat grind. As well as on the Shaman, you also have got a small flat up here at the top. So again, not a full flat ground blade, but they're pretty close. Anyway, behind the edge thickness on the Shaman, you've got a pretty Spyderco standard 24 thousandths behind the edge. And both of these knives are still factory edges. I haven't sharpened either one of these. And over here on the Benchmade Freek, you have 21 thousandths behind the edge. So, Not a huge difference there. I would have liked to see the Benchmade be a little thinner behind the edge, especially with the thinner blade stock. Um, but you know, it's just kind of what we're seeing these days with production knives. There's not too many that are coming, super slicey right out of the box. So, so overall, I think these two knives pair off extremely well to one another. So there's a lot of other similarities with both of these knives. So of course, with the Freek, you only have one deployment method, which is the thumb stud. Um, I guess I shouldn't say only one, because you can, pull the access lock back and just flip it out like that. But of course, the thumb stud works great, and everybody's used to that. The access lock is great. Of course, you can Spidey flick it, middle finger flick it, and that part works great. All is well there. Of course, the access lock is fantastic. We do have a reversible pocket clip on the Freek. It's only for tip up carry, which tip up or tip down isn't that big of a deal to me. Just the fact that it is reversible is great. And Benchmade stuck with their standard clip design hole pattern here, so you can pretty much use any of the Benchmade clips on this guy, which is great. Like I said, I put a bug out clip on there. Um, so the pretty standard Benchmade operation here. Now with the Shaman, of course, you've got the Spidey hole and compression lock. The compression lock, you either love it or hate it. Most people seem to like it quite a bit, and I like it. It's fine. I feel like a lot of people really brag it up, but there are some shortcomings with the compression lock. One of which is evident on this particular knife, where you have that nubbin there from the forward finger choil coming up into the compression lock area. So this has, been a problem with other Spydercos, mainly the flipper compression lock Spydercos. And then there was I don't remember which model it was, but there was one that would actually cut you. The cutting edge actually came up into that space there. I think it was a Paul Alexander design, but I might be wrong on that. I can't remember which one it was. However, of course, with this, you can Spidey flick it, obviously. But you can also, I don't know how well I can do this on camera, but you can also front flip this knife because of that jimping right there. Allows you to roll it out, which works well. And of course, with both of them, you can slow roll it. And so, in that way, both of them have a ton of fidget factor. Of course, access lock knives always work extremely well and are fun to fidget with. However, with the access lock, you do have the Omega springs in there, which will break. And I actually have a broken one right now on a bug out that the bug out's only about 6 months old or so, and it's got a broken spring already. So, just one of those things, I guess. But as far as the user experience is concerned with these two knives, both of them, you pretty much have the exact same experience, right or left-handed, with the exception of the compression lock. For left-handed people, the compression lock isn't really great because you're kind of just barely hanging on to the knife to access the compression lock, and that's not fantastic. You just end up dropping your knife a bunch when you're messing around, especially when that little nub there comes back and hits you in the thumb. So the compression lock really is suited for right-handed people. However, you do have the option to move the pocket clip on the Shaman, and it's tip up or tip down, right or left side carry. Honestly, I wish they would just make it right or left carry, having the holes. I think at this point most people agree that tip up is the preferred carry method. Like I said, if a knife is tip down carry, it's not the end of any worlds. It's just the way it was designed. As long as the clip doesn't cause too many hot spots, I don't really care one way or the other. Um, you know, it's never really been an issue. However, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but the phosphor bronze washers in there, you can actually see those through these holes. And I guess you do have maybe some more opportunity to get dirt and gunk and stuff in there. And I doubt there's very many people that switch this to a tip down carry. So I feel like this is kind of unnecessary to put those holes up there, but whatever. It's nice to have the option, I suppose, but I just doubt there's very many people that do that. I guess the same could be said for the lanyard hole, or at least in my opinion. I don't know a whole bunch of people that put lanyards on their knives. So, as far as the user experience is concerned, it's pretty similar. You're pretty well suited for righties and lefties as far as opening is concerned. Closing, the Benchmade's a little bit nicer, just because the left-handed experience is identical. You got double-sided thumb studs, as well as the access lock is obviously the exact same. So, this one's probably, the Freek is maybe a little bit more well-rounded. Now, you don't have that forward grip area, but you do have the thumb ramp, which is really nice, and you have really good, confident grip on this knife. It's although the G10 here is kind of slick to the touch, although it does have some milling on it. It's not just smooth. There are some grooves cut in it this direction through the midsection, and then there are some lines and some different I don't know, for lack of a better word, topography on here. It's not just flat and smooth. So if you've never handled one of these, there are a lot of depth and elevation changes on the handle. But, super comfortable in the hand. And because you have a little thicker grip there, a little thicker handle, it makes for a really good grip. And the thumb ramp is really fantastic. Now, you do have a really good flat here on the blade with some nice belly. This drop point blade here is I would say it's just a really, really good user design. Pretty standard blade shape. This kind of a cutting edge, I think, is just kind of what everybody thinks about when you think about a knife. Whereas the Shaymin also has some flat and some belly, and I think the cutting edge is pretty standard. However, the leaf-shaped blade, a lot of people, or at least I've heard a lot of people, not really care for the look. It's more an aesthetic thing, I think. Spydercos are generally always good users, but some people are turned off by the aesthetics of them. Generally speaking, Spydercos aren't really a sexy knife, but definitely make good users. As far as construction is concerned here, both of these knives are riding on phosphor bronze washers. You do have liners, steel liners on both knives. On the Shaymin, the liners are full liners. They're nested inside these Micarta scales. And then you also have this stainless steel backspacer. And so that's that's the reason for why this knife is a little heavier. And then on the on the Freek, you do have liners for the mechanism here, but they are half liners. They're not a full liner. They're much smaller than the actual scale, and they stop back in this area here. This screw right here is holding in the back side of the liner. So the liner is pretty much like the Benchmade bug out if you've ever had one of those apart. I'm not going to take these apart in this video just because it's long enough already. But yeah, checking these two out. If anyone is interested in maybe a little bit harder use knife, something a little more substantial, a little larger, I think they're both really good choices. Both of them are really good for big old meat hooks like mine. Uh, but if you do have large hands, I would say the Shaman might be just a little bit better, just because you have such a long grip area here. Uh, the Super Freak, again, it's super comfortable and it works well, but it is just a little more condensed grip area here. Like I said, I don't feel cramped on it, but it also wouldn't hurt my feelings any if this were shaped slightly different, to maybe allow for one to get a little closer to the blade and extend the grip area just slightly. Um, the Shaman has massive grip area, so when you're really choked up on this knife, very seldom do I have this much handle sticking out of the backside. But on this knife, you just have a really, really large grip area. So, anyway, um, yeah, I think both are certainly good quality knives and pretty good examples of, American made, high quality. Price wise, they're both right in the same range. For this Sprint variant, I want to say this thing's just over $200. But I think the standard Shaman is around, I think, 180, maybe 179, something like that. Um, and the standard version is G10 scale with S30V blade steel. And then the Freak only comes, well, there was the small Freak, but the large one here, to my knowledge anyway, only comes in this variant with the M4 blade steel and this layered gray and black G10 scales, and the red accents. So that's your only option there. But as far as quality, both of these knives came from the factory, centered, no blade play, no lock rock, nothing like that. Both are well made U.S. From large manufacturers. So anyway, guys, I think that about covers it. As far as my own personal favorite, I don't know. I like them both. I think they're both good knives. I guess if I had to choose one, yeah, I like this Sprint Run variant, mainly just because I got a soft spot for Micarta. So that's probably what's drawing me more to this guy. I've just always liked Micarta scales, and yeah, the Spyderco here is definitely scratching that itch for sure. This is the first Shaman that I've owned, so I wasn't necessarily aware of the front flipability. I'd handled a few, but I just really hadn't messed with them very, very much. So I guess right now, I would probably say the Shaman is my favorite between the two. However, that also might be because this one's newer too. You know how it is. I've had this one a little bit longer. But both are great knives. I really don't believe you can go wrong either way. Um, Price wise, I guess we talked about the price here. I didn't really talk about the price on this guy. I think it's right around $200 as well. Somewhere between 180 and $200. So if you were looking at the stock Shaman in the standard variant, I think it's 179 ish, and this is within $20 of it, something like that. So they're right in line with each other price wise. Weight, the Shaman is slightly heavier. Now the standard variant with the G10 might be a little different weight, but I don't think it's going to be very much different. It's going to be very, very similar. So really, these two, they're really kind of serve the same purpose. And I think both are a good option, really. So if you like one better than the other for aesthetic reasons, then I think you can't go wrong with either one, really. So I think they're good knives, and you know, I guess if you're left-handed, I'm actually left-handed, so but I'm just so used to dealing with knives that are only right-hand carry that I do carry in my right pocket, so it doesn't really matter to me. But if you were hardcore for you know, left-handed use, I would probably go with the Freek, just because of the compression lock is not real user friendly for lefties. I mean, it works, it's okay, but the compression lock really was made for right-handed people. So yeah, that's my take on these two knives, guys. I know this is a little bit longer video, but yeah, both are really cool, and yeah, hopefully you're having a good night. And see, I fucked it up again. Anyway, guys, there we go. All right, have a good one. We'll talk to you next time.